Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus A330 pilot, and today we are going to have a look at the failure scenarios in the Tollus A340-600. Those are quite some unique features that we haven't seen in any other add-on like that yet, so I'm really excited to give these a try. Follow me inside and then I'm going to show you around what we are about to do next. So, when we go into the Tollus EFB, we got the startup and situation screen on the left over here. And this screen provides us with 10 different situations that we can go through that give us some really exciting exercises showing off the system depth of the aircraft. Now, today we're going to try situation number 5, which is an Etihad flight from Brussels to Abu Dhabi, and in this one we are going to have an engine failure past V1. You can see that there are a lot of other situations, many of which we are definitely going to do throughout the next couple of days and weeks. But we're going to start with this one, which is the engine failure. So what do we do? When you select the scenario, you go on a situation load, and then it basically puts you right into the correct location. Namely, that's runway 25 right here at Brussels Airport. Now, from there, you can also separately load the config, or you just spawn the airplane yourself on that spot and then load the config, and that puts your entire panel state into the appropriate panel state for this situation. So we're basically sitting here on the ramp, everything is loaded, including the FMC and everything else. The airplane is in a completely correct configuration for our departure. So basically all we gotta do is to set our thrust and take off and then see what's going to happen. This is quite similar to how pilots would be presented with situations in the full flight simulators during the recurrent simulator exercises, where a lot of the stuff like the FMS would be pre-saved. You just load into a situation, you have a little bit of time to find your way around, and then you get yourself ready for that flight. So for today's departure, let's just talk about a couple of basics of where we are and what we are doing, and then we are going to depart and see what this situation is going to present us with. So we're currently sitting on Brussels runway 25 right. We got the Lima November Oscar 4 Golf departure, which is straight ahead to 1700, and then we make a left-hand turn out via Haldenberg and then on to, or actually via Bravo Romeo 101, and then basically left turn out like that. And that's what we got down here in the FMS as well. Our minimum safe altitude is 2,200 feet, and the engine failure procedure is given in the briefing document that ToLiss supplies for those situations. So let's just have a very quick look into the briefing document, which you can, by the way, find on the product page on the Aerosoft shop. So this is what it looks like, and this is our mission. So we are the captain for Etihad Flight 58 from Brussels to Abu Dhabi. We will be accelerating down runway 25 right as one of our engines is going to fail after V1. The mission goal is to continue the takeoff with the engine failure, stabilize the aircraft, secure the engine. They say down here return to Brussels, but we will be doing all of that just like we would in a real-world simulator scenario or a real-world flight. So we'll be doing all the decision-making, etc. before we either return to Brussels or take another safe course of action. What's quite interesting over here is that it also gives us the objective of the lesson, and it basically gives us, if we went down here, it would give us the procedures, etc. as well. So that's really nicely done. It also gives us the weather a little bit further down, because there is a dedicated weather preset that comes with this scenario as well, which we have selected down here. So that was situation number 5, so that's the preset I loaded. Okay, excellent. So with that, we are pretty much prepared for takeoff. The engine outset is indicated by this blue line over here, and basically straight ahead 25 miles, and since the MSA is 2,200, we would just climb to 3,000 and then decide on the further course of action. Alright, and I think this is pretty much it, so let's go ahead and get this airplane ready for some flying. Okay, are you ready? Then the park and brake is Well, that's not supposed to be there. Here we go. Parking brake is released. This is a config 3 takeoff, so a little bit of drag to be expected. And yeah, then let's go. Takeoff. Manflex 65, SRS, runway, auto thrust blue. Thrust set. One on knots, checked. Rotate. Engine failure. Positive climb. Gear up. Pull heading. Heading. Okay, trimming it out right now. I do have a button assigned for that. Okay, this looks quite good. Autopilot. Okay, engine 3 fail. And looking over here, that is confirmed. Alright, ECAM actions. And so, engine start selector, ignition. Engine start selector, ignition. Thrust lever 3, idle. Confirm. Lever 3 confirmed. Idle. If no relight after 30 seconds, and 30 seconds are already over, Engine Master 3 off. Confirm. Engine Master 3 confirmed. Off. If damage, so N1 is rotating, N3 is rotating, there is no firelight. Nope, there is no damage. That's the engine secured. Okay, stop ECAM. So, Alt. Flaps 1. Speed checked. Flaps 1. So, 3,000 feet set. That's the engine out. We are pretty much at the MSA already. Flap 0. Speed checked. Flap 0. Okay. Thrust MCT, open climb, Alt 3000 blue. Yeah, disregard the overspeed, that's just because the slats are a little slow. Here we go. Alright, speed out start. We'll just monitor the level off, then we continue with the ECAM. Right now there is no rush, since there is no danger or anything to the airplane. Okay, here we go. Alt. Okay, continue ECAM. So, if damage, we have already determined that there is none, so if no damage, engine 3 relight consider. To be honest, if an engine goes out at that high speed, I'm not a big fan of relight, because you never know what may have happened inside the engine, and I don't want to make the situation any worse, so the relight is considered. Clear overflow. Okay, so fuel imbalance monitor. We'll do that. Just a quick look down here. That's totally fine for the time being. Okay, TCAS mode selector, TA. So TCAS mode selector, TA. Okay, clear engine 3. Clear engine 3. Air, abnormal bleed config. Cross bleed, open. So air, cross bleed, open. Airflow, auto low. Air, airflow, auto low. Alright, and forward cargo regulator off. So that's cargo, forward regulator, off. Clear air, clear air. So land ASAP and amber, hydraulic, and on the hydraulics, the number 3 pump is off, the rest is all looking good. Clear hydraulics, ELAC, generator 3 is off, expected, the rest is looking normal. Clear ELAC, clear ELAC. Status, stop ECAM. Okay, so, we're not gonna go for a restart. Apart from that, there is not really anything we could do over here, so continue ECAM please. Status, approach procedure. For landing, use flaps 3, landing distance procedure apply, fuel imbalance monitor, flaps slow, cap 3 single only. Inoperative systems, yellow hydraulic, partial spoilers, reverse 3, cap 3 dual, engine 3 bleed, yellow engine 3 pump, generator 3. Remove status, remove status. ECAM actions complete. Okay, so 2200 is the MSA. There's nothing in the area. Let's just do a left turn here, something like heading 100 or heading 090, just to stay in the general area. Our pilot monitoring would already have been talking to air traffic control, and now we got to make a decision over here. So let's apply FORDEC and see what conclusion we may come to. So for a fact, engine number 3 has failed. There is no obvious damage to the airplane. So what does that mean? We do have a lot of time available, and we do have several options. The weather is pretty much good everywhere, and we will have to do a config 3 landing. Now we could decide whether we may want to dump fuel or do an overweight landing, but I'm totally honest with you. At this weight we can land overweight, and the airplane is going to have to get maintenance anyway, so overweight landing is fine for me if it works with the performance figures as well. Apart from that, that's pretty much all the facts. So, which options do we have available? There's Brussels nearby. That's our departure airport. That's where we got maintenance available. That's where we got a lot of passenger handling abilities available. There is also Liège, and if we fly a little bit further, I mean, we have 3 engines. That's one more than we have 99% of the time on this channel. Then we could also go to airports like Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Paris, even London if we wanted to, though that wouldn't be as good for the passengers for immigration reasons. So yeah, plenty of options are available for us. So what risk and benefits do we have? Kind of went into that already, and the weather is good everywhere. The passenger handling and the maintenance are definitely available here in Brussels. Let's just check how long their runways are. Brussels Airport. So we've got 3,200 meters on 25 left, 3,600 meters with a little display threshold on 25 right. So if we need something longer, then Frankfurt is available there. So yeah, I think it's pretty much the same for the passengers. Brussels would probably be best. At this point, we could also go over to the satellite communication and just call the company, see what they got to say, where they want us to be, provided that that does not impede any safe decision. We could just fly there. So let's say that the company prefers us in Brussels as well. So let's just go ahead and do a landing performance calculation. Not gonna make it all the way to Abu Dhabi today. Echo Bravo Bravo Romeo. Let's see if we can land overweight or if we need to come back there. One little problem always gives us the weather live from the internet, but we know that that's not what we got. So let's just quickly go into that Aerosoft mission profile. and see what they are going to show us. So where's that weather? Here it is, 1022, 29, 230 at 10. So that is 230 at 10, temperature 29, and the QNH 1022. Okay, like that. Current growth weight 285.5. Let's calculate 285.
2,500.
Checked, all flat lands. Okay, landing config is 3 as per the ECAM. Air conditioning on, pilot VAP 0. Yeah, let's just calculate that. Overweight, but as you can see, 732 meters margin, so easy going. Okay. So that's that. Yeah, so I'd say for risk and benefits we can absolutely land overweight. Not a problem at all with that. So yeah, the decision is to return to Brussels. Well, let's go ahead to execute that. You have control. So secondary flight plan activates. That already has 25 right in there. I'm gonna change that to 25 left because that's their normal landing runway. So ILS Zulu 25 left, insert, step deleted is checked, extend that center line from GIGNU 067, insert, pull heading. Then let's bring that status back up. So for landing, use flaps 3, we'll plan that. Landing distance procedure apply, we've already done that. So that's all looking fantastic. Okay, so very quick check through the ILS approach runway 25 left. We selected a Zulu approach, didn't we? Yep, ILS 25 left, Zulu. Why do we not have that anywhere in here? Well, that's interesting. We don't have the correct charts there. Okay, doesn't matter. Can we select Whiskey or Yankee? Yeah, we do have Yankee. And we do not have charts for that either. Okay. No comment on that. Tell you what, I'm gonna leave the ILS Zulu in there, and we'll just take the chart for the Whiskey. Looking at that chart over here, yeah, that seems to be a fairly new chart, just one IRAC cycle old. They probably programmed that scenario with an older database and now use that old database. Okay, well, so be it. Bravo 25 Lima Fox in 2000. Yep. Well, 3000 in here. Okay. Let's just use the minimum from here and assume that the rest is given. Okay? Okay, so 1022, temperature 29, and 230 at 10. The minimum was 350, config 3, rather fast approach here, 164, but that's fine. And then for the go-around, thrust reduction and acceleration, we'll do 1000 above the ground. Ground is 150, so that's 150. And 150. And then for the engine out acceleration, we'll use an MSA of 2200, missed approach altitude 4000, so 2200 it is. Like that. Okay, plenty of fuel, don't need to talk about that. And that's it. Okay. So might as well quickly do this and this. Thank you. Okay, good. So that stuff is done. Now we gotta decide, do we want to do an overweight landing or dump any fuel? I'll tell you honestly, with 732 meters stop margin, no need to fly the airplane longer than we absolutely have to. So I'm gonna return overweight. Okay, so this is the point where we would have to read the overweight landing procedure. Unfortunately, that one is not available anywhere in the manuals provided by ToLiss. So what I'm going to do is to take the overweight landing procedure from the A330 that I have in my QRH. The procedure should basically be the same anyway. So, overweight landing. Flap lever full for landing unless specified by abnormal procedure or limited by landing performance. In our case, it is specified that we got to use flaps 3. Landing distance procedure apply, we've done that. For approach, pack 1 and 2 off or supplied by the APU. So we do not have any reason not to use the APU. So let's go ahead and start the APU. Okay, if landing config other than full, use config 1 plus F for go around, we'll do that. Speed at runway threshold VLS, minimize vertical speed at touchdown. For landing, increase flare height, use maximum reverse as soon as possible, and after nose wheel touchdown, apply the brakes as necessary. When the landing is completed, if brake fans installed, brake fans on. We do not have brake fans installed on this plane, so we can't put them on. So basically speaking, we just put the APU bleed on, we reduce the speed to VLS over the runway threshold and minimize the vertical speed at touchdown, increase the flare height and use maximum reverse as soon as possible. And that's the overweight landing procedure. Okay, nice and easy. Well, let's already make that left-hand turn here. Heading 340 for a base leg. And yeah, that's all this done. Okay, that sounds like the APU just became available. Yep. Even though I'm not 100% sure why we heard an electrical transient sound, because as you can see the APU generator is not online. It's generator 4 supplying the AC buses 2.3 and 2.4. Okay, anyway, so this is all done. Flaps will be slow, that is noted, so we'll start slowing down a bit earlier. Okay, everything done. Then activate approach phase. And with the APU available, APU bleed is coming on. Then our bleeds are now supplied by the APU. And the engines have maximum go-around thrust available, according to the overweight landing procedure. Okay, that was nice and easy. So, approach briefing. ILS Zulu 25 left, starting in 3000, and the minimum is 350, MSA 2200, go around straight at left turn, climbing 4000, with the acceleration altitude at 2200. Plenty of extra fuel, no need to worry about that. That's absolutely correct, and we will be flying the approach with flight director guidance, and it'll have to be manual landing here. Due to the overweight, config 3, maximum reverse, auto brake low, 700 meters stop margin. We'll stop the airplane on the runway, have the emergency services have a look at the plane, and then we decide on the further course of action. Anything from your side? Threats? Just controllability on go-around, because we're missing an engine, so we'll need a little bit of left rudder in case of go-around. That's it. Okay, so that's the approach briefing completed. Then let's start slowing down here. Flaps 1. Speed checked, flaps 1. Okay, so far so good. So let's do a left-hand turn, heading 280, and we are cleared for the ILS approach, runway 25 right. That's lock star, CAM 3 signal, autopilot 1 and 2, glide slope blue. And flaps 2. Speed checked, flaps 2. So, let's see how slow the flaps will actually be. Localizer alive. Yeah, flaps are a little bit slower, that's totally fine. Okay, so remove status. Here we go. Approach checklist, please. Barrel ref, QNH 1022. Seatbelts on, minimum is MDA 350. Auto brake, low, engine mode selector, ignition start, approach checklist complete. Okay, that is all easy going for the time being. So, is there anything that we may have forgotten? Anything we could have done better? No? Okay. So, just to look at the overweight landing checklist again, for approach, packs 1 and 2 off or supplied by APU. We got them supplied by the APU. If landing config other than full, use 1 plus F for go around. We'll do that. Speed at runway threshold, VLS, and minimize vertical speed at touchdown. For landing, increase flare height and use maximum reverse as soon as possible. After nose wheel touchdown, apply brakes as necessary. That sounds all easy. Okay, beautiful. So we're completely set up for the approach. Glide slope alive. We are overweight, so I don't want to reduce our speeds into a configuration where we might have to extend the landing gear yet. We could go flaps 3 already, just to get the speed down, but I'd rather do that on the descent so that the engine thrust doesn't have to change too much. And so that we don't have to fly very high power settings in level flight. Glide slope star. Go around altitude 4000 set. Okay, gear down. And flaps 3. Speed check. Flaps 3. Okay, here we go. The airplane is in landing configuration.
2,500.
Checked. Basically everything looking fantastic. All right. Well, everything's stabilized. Cabin, yeah, come on, you're supposed to be ready. Here we go. Landing checklist, ECAM memo, landing no blue. Landing checklist complete. Okay, lovely. Everything done, everything stabilized. Let's go ahead and take over manually. Want to get a little bit of feeling for the airplane here and how it handles. So one more thing, just to have it in mind, that's neutralizing the rudder trim. We will do that at about 500 feet, just so that we have a little bit of manual feeling for our airplane. And you guys are probably not going to see it because I will do it with a button on my hardware controls. Alright. Checked. What's the speed doing?
Approaching 25 left.
Checked. Okay, neutralize the rudder trim, please. Land. So let's reduce the speed down to VLS. Checked. A little bit right of centerline, correcting. Nope, no speed read. alert. We are right at VLS. Okay, increase flare height.
40, 30, 20, restart, 10, 5.
That's the aft boogie. Front boogie. And here we are. Okay, spoilers, reverse green. Auto brake went off, manual brakes.
1,500 meters remaining. 1,002
70 knots.
remaining.
Okay. Parking brake set. Welcome back to Brussels. 25 minutes of flight time. And that, guys, is everything there is behind it with the engine failure. From this point, we'll have the emergency services inspect the airplane just to see if the engine failure caused any kind of trouble. And once that is done, we will probably be able to taxi to the gate, since there has not really been any damage to the plane. We haven't been particularly overweight either, and we used the reversers initially to lose a little bit of the speed, so that I don't expect that the brakes are going to get too hot after this. In any case, that's everything there is to this. Thank you very much for flying along. Definitely an interesting scenario that we had over here, and I'm really looking forward to trying the other scenarios as well. That is a feature that we haven't seen like this in other add-ons yet, and a feature that I do really like, as it reminds me of the simulator training that we do in the real world as well. Thanks very much for watching. As always, like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.